Back in 2004, California voters approved a $3 billion research agency intended to delve into the potential of stem cells. The California Institute of Regenerative Medicine in Oakland grew out of that. In 2020, California voters voted another $5.5 billion in funding for the agency that basically makes our state the center of stem cell research. It's a lot of money, and while stem cells have a lot of potential, many wonder, is regenerative medicine worthy of that huge price tag?
I still remember looking down the microscope for the first time to see these results, and I saw the future.
If you talk to patients who have had their lives saved or improved, or the researchers behind those clinical trials, there is a sense of wonder and excitement for the future.
Stem cell therapies, it will transform medicine as you know it.
Doctors are predicting treatments or cures for diseases from diabetes to multiple sclerosis and cancer to Parkinson's disease.
I think years from now, you'll look back and we'll wonder how we ever did it.
We take a closer look. Fox 11 News in Depth starts right now. Hello, everyone. I'm Hal Eisner. Welcome to Fox 11 News in Depth. We're at the City of Hope in Duarte, a massive campus here. We happen to be in a small museum where you can see a lot about the history. In fact, I'm right next to a history wall here that takes us all the way back to 1913 and all the way forward to some of the advancements in HIV/AIDS and also in diabetes and some of the survivors up on the wall. Besides being a hospital, it's a research center committed to finding treatments and cures for cancer. And the California Institute for Regenerative Medicine is responsible for funding clinical trials using stem cells to help patients heal and recover from medical issues that can't be addressed in other ways. That's just one of the many things they do out here. Joe Gantz is an Emmy award-winning filmmaker of such films as American Winter, The Race to Save the World, and now Ending Disease, which focuses on regenerative medicine. And Joe, thanks for joining us. I've watched this documentary. I got to tell you, it's pretty powerful. And what got you started on the road to wanting to make this documentary?
Well, Hal, I've always been fascinated with the potential for stem cell and regenerative medicine to cure diseases. And I knew that in 2004, the state of California passed a ballot measure that gave $3 billion for stem cell research. And I started hearing about 6 years ago that the first clinical trials were happening for potential cures for many different diseases, and I decided to do a documentary which would follow these clinical trials. I followed 10 clinical trials for brain cancer, breast cancer, leukemia, lymphoma, HIV, a spinal cord injury, eye disease, and babies born without an immune system.
I'll tell you, as I pointed out, I've watched this documentary. I know a lot more now than I knew before I watched this documentary. And I've got to ask you, since you started, how many years ago?
5 years ago, we started filming.
When you came out of it, you must have started like a blank canvas, and then by the time you got through, you knew more than you could ever possibly have thought you were going to know.
Well, we followed a number of different clinical trials. Some of them were like a home run in terms of cures. The treatments using stem cells and CAR T cells for blood cancers are really offering tremendous amount of remission and cures. And then we follow Ryan, who was a basketball player in college with a full scholarship. He broke his neck, was quadriplegic, and basically 5 years ago would have been told, you're not going to make any progress throughout your life.
And then as a result of the stem cell technology, he did make a lot of progress. Let me break right here, because we have in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, via Zoom right now, Rayling Unger, who is also a recipient of stem cells. Tell us a little bit about what your case was all about and how you were and how you are.
Well, I was first diagnosed in 2007 at the age of 16. I'm now 31, so it was a long time ago. Within that time, in that time frame, I had relapsed 3 times. I had done a bone marrow transplant, as well as chemotherapy, all the traditional therapies. And at the point where
that cancer you had was what? Be a little more specific about it.
It was acute lymphoblastic leukemia. So it was a childhood type of leukemia. And I was actually considered more at the older age range of the age of 16 getting it. So it was a little bit more aggressive and harder to get rid of. And finally, the last time after I had had a allogeneic stem cell transplant from my brother, he was about a half match. I relapsed about a year later, and we were running out of options. So I was at City of Hope. The doctors were great. I was introduced to CAR T-cell therapy. It was in clinical trials. So for me, it was really nerve-wracking having something that wasn't so official as far as researched and sure. But at the same time, I didn't have any other options. And I was fortunate to be qualified for this clinical trial. I believe there was 12 or 13 of us. And we all were very specific cases. And after I did CAR T cells, I thankfully went into remission shortly after. And following that, I ended up doing another transplant. But CAR T cell, hands down, saved my life. That was in 2017. This is now 2022. And this is the longest I've gone without having a relapse. So I'm healthy.
That's great, and because we don't have as much time as they used in the documentary that Joe made, let me ask you in short form, what do you think of stem cell technology? What do you think of this whole notion of regenerative medicine as you've been through it?
I think it's so essential to our future. I think that if it weren't for it, I wouldn't be here today, as well as many other people that have been fortunate to receive CAR T-cell therapy, as well as other stem cell therapies. And I think it's all completely essential to progressing with healthcare and cures.
Okay. All right. Rayling Unger in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, thanks so much for joining us. And let me just say one final thing to Joe Gantz. If there's a bottom line for you, what is it?
Well, stem cell regenerative medicine is fundamentally changing medicine from treatments over a lifetime to one-time cures of a whole host of different diseases. It's not only going to save lives and reduce suffering, but it's going to make the whole medical system a lot less expensive. So it's going to be profound change in the way we treat diseases.
Joe Gantz, thank you so much for joining us. We talked to the man considered the father of stem cell therapy about these remarkable treatments, and we meet a woman whose breast cancer therapy has helped her stay healthy for more than 20 years. We'll be right back. Don't go away. Welcome back to Fox 11 News in Depth. I'm Hal Eisner. We're here in Duarte at the City of Hope, where cancer is the main target, and we're talking about stem cell technology and how it's being used. Regenerative medicine, something the voters voted on years ago to put a lot of money into the research. And the very first guy that really got involved in this was Dr. Irv Weissman. Irv is referred to as the father of stem cell technology. And Dr. Weissman, thank you so much for being with us. You're joining us via Zoom up in Palo Alto, and you started with a mouse, is that right?
Yeah. In 1988, we were lucky enough to figure out how to isolate in pure form blood-forming stem cells from a mouse, about 1 in 100,000 cells in the blood-forming organs. So we pivoted as fast as we could to search for, and 3 years later, find the human blood-forming stem cell. And because we could get it in pure form, we could think about what therapies were ongoing at that time and what we could do.
I have to ask you, I mean, let me just backtrack a little bit. When you discovered this in a mouse, this is very preliminary research. Was it like, oh my gosh, eureka, look what we found? Is that what it was like, or what was your reaction?
Yeah, the eureka moment was just before we found it, but we realized that we were looking for the blood-forming stem cell rather than what we thought we were looking for. And that was the aha moment. But then the incredible moment is when we first isolated it, tested, and showed that we could replace the whole blood-forming system of a mouse that received the kind of lethal dose that some people in Hiroshima and Nagasaki got. And we could restore them right away. And the cells we put in replaced the cells that had been damaged by radiation.
I'm not sure that people have a complete understanding, unless they've seen this documentary we've been talking about, of what a stem cell is and how a stem cell works. So you're probably the guy that can sort of give us the most simple explanation of what is a stem cell and how does it work.
Sure. The stem cell is the one cell in a tissue or organ, let's say the blood-forming tissue, that when it divides to give rise to two daughter cells, at least one of them is a stem cell. That's called self-renewal. No other cell in the group of cells that it makes can self-renew. So it is the only cell that develops and maintains the system. The blood-forming stem cell is critical because not only was it the way to rescue people from radiation, but most of the chemo that's used to get rid of cancer or get rid of most of the cancer cells, your limitation is you are destroying also the blood-forming stem cells. So if you could take them out before their therapy and make sure they were pure, they didn't have any cancer cells with them or any other dangerous cells with them, then you could reinfuse them right after they had what would be a lethal combination chemotherapy or radiotherapy. So that we thought, that's our first objective. Let's try to do it. And we turned to breast cancer because at the time, women with breast cancer that had spread beyond the breast and had gone to all parts of the body, you can't use surgery or radiotherapy now to get rid of it. So the only chance to get rid of it is very high dose combination chemotherapy, kill as many cells as you can. And we knew later in retrospect that we were taking 100 billion cancer cells down to less than 100,000.
It's mind-boggling. It really is when you think about all of this. But I want to turn to one of your patients who's up in Portland, Oregon right now, Ellen Perez. And Ellen, tell us about your case in the clinical trial, what you had and how you are now.
Well, I was first diagnosed when I was 34, which, by the way, tomorrow I'll be 66. So it's quite a celebration for me. When it was 1996, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. It had metastasized to my pelvic area and up and down my spine. So when I went to the oncologist, he had given me some information about the Stanford study that they were doing there and left it up to me. And having the choice of either having the Stanford study of the high dose chemotherapy or standard chemotherapy treatment was really important to me, because when you have cancer, you feel that you don't have control over your life much. And so to be able to make this choice for myself was very important. So I chose the high dose.
When you think back, let me ask you, when you think back to Dr. Weissman finding something in a mouse, then translating that to humans, and then to ultimately breast cancer patients, and you think of how you are now and how you were back when you were much younger, what is your sense of this entire technology?
It's amazing. It is just unbelievable. And I am so grateful to the scientists and the doctors that have put so much work into this to be able to purify your stem cells and put them back into you to make the possibility of curing you, which happened to me, is unbelievable. And I can't say enough how much I am grateful for this study, for Dr. Weissman and his work that he's done. because I would not be here if it wasn't for that study.
You would not be here today, and we're grateful. We're grateful that you are here today. We're grateful for you joining us, and we're grateful to Dr. Weissman for joining us as well from up in Palo Alto. And coming up next on Fox 11 News In Depth, we'll talk about another part of all of this. It's something called CAR T cells, and we'll tell you what that's all about after this break. Don't go away. Hello, welcome back to Fox 11 News In Depth. I'm Hal Eisner. We're at the City of Hope here in Duarte. Another aspect of this stem cell technology or regenerative medicine is what we call CAR T cells. And I'm going to the expert here to find out more about that, Dr. Steven Foreman. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. It's a pleasure to be here.
Pleasure to have you. And tell me, what are these things, CAR T cells?
So CAR T cells are cells from your own immune system that we remove and genetically modify so they'll recognize cancer, and then grow them up in large numbers, put them back in, and hope that they will find the cancer, eliminate it, and put the patient into remission.
You don't have to tell you, it's interesting to be in a place that has dealt with cancer for so incredibly long. I remember being told it started in 1913 as a sanatorium, dealing with tuberculosis, and over the years, I think somewhere in the 50s, it became a place to deal with cancer. And the strides and the steps along the way. In fact, in this museum, we've seen some of that here. You're in this film, Ending Disease, and tell us how those CAR T cells are taking us to another level.
So most people think about cancer therapy as being surgery, radiation, chemotherapy. What we've developed here at the City of Hope, as well as our colleagues around the country and around the world, is how to harness the immune system to do what we want it to do, which is not just recognize infections, but recognize something unwelcome as cancer in the body and eliminate it in the way that we get over infections. And we're adding that as a fourth arm to the therapy of cancer.
Now, watching the film, I remember they're kind of like a little army of small soldiers, and they're fighting away at things that the stem cells don't actually get at. Is that right?
I think we're trying to reinvigorate the immune system to do something that it didn't do in the first place, otherwise that's why the person got the disease. So the idea is to augment it, make it more powerful, more specific, and put it back into the person and hope that it will eliminate the cancer cell and put them into remission.
So you have stem cells, you have CAR T cells, and they work together?
So in this setting, we take the T cells by themselves, but at the end of the day, all the cells of your immune system are derived from stem cells in your bone marrow. These T cells that are made out of the bone marrow go out into the blood, into lymph nodes, and we take them out of the blood, take them to our laboratory, genetically modify them to recognize something on the cancer, grow them up in large numbers, and put them back into the person, and they will find the cancer, and in many instances will eliminate it and put the person into remission.
You use the operative words there, in many instances. There are some it doesn't work.
So one of the challenges is to make it work in as many people as we can. We have some types of CAR T cells where 90% of the people go into remission. And the goal is to see whether they'll stay in remission. But we have patients who come to us who literally were pre-hospice, who got this therapy, who are alive, in remission, engaging in life 3 and 4 years later.
Talk to me about the side effects of stem cells and all of this technology here.
So it depends on what the situation is. We use stem cells to do stem cell transplants to treat cancer. We're known for that. One of the original 6 programs in the United States was right here at the City of Hope, and we're the largest program in the United States right now. CAR T cells are derived from that discipline of taking cells and making them work in a way for a person's benefit, and it's based on research that's done in our laboratories here, clinical trials that are done here, all really on our campus. We have the laboratories, the facilities to grow cells, and a place to take care of people, which is what they need and what they want.
When you went to medical school a couple of minutes ago, did you ever dream that you'd find yourself in this kind of an environment dealing with something called stem cells?
So I knew when I was in training, they were just beginning to identify stem cells and what they could do. And I came here specifically to help develop the transplant program for patients with leukemia and lymphoma and diseases like that. The immunotherapy and CAR T cells really is an outgrowth of that work. I knew pretty early on in my training that I wanted to help take care of people who had these diseases, who had cancer, were facing existential threats in addition to the biology of all this, and figure out a way to do a better job. And I've been blessed that in the time I've been at this institution, at the City of Hope, in our cancer center, that we've seen many remarkable things that were developed here that we then took and were able to give to a patient and affect the care of cancer all around the world.
Where are we, do you think, in the journey to beat cancer?
So that's a long road. I just know what we were doing 10 years ago, 20 years ago, and what the limitations were and what we're doing today. So every step forward inspires the next step forward, and we build on it, and we're doing things now that we never dreamed of before. And the best example is that whenever we have been successful and gotten somebody well or even cured, I think we all think about some people we knew 5 years ago, 10 years ago. Had we known then what we know now would be part of this conversation today.
Well, what do you think the next step is?
I think for all of our therapies, better identification of targets within cancer cells for either gene therapy or targeted drugs. But on the immune side is to help make the immune system simply more capable of recognizing the cancer as a foreign, unwelcome invader and to rid the body of it.
What about solid tumors? What do you say about that?
And so the work we did in working out CAR T-cell lymphoma and leukemia and myeloma is now being applied now to brain tumors, prostate cancer, lung cancer. We're trying to develop an immune therapy really to cover all the different types of cancers that people get, including the brain. And one of the first places to carry the flag for people with brain tumors and CAR T-cell therapy was right here.
I know this last question you could take days to answer, but you only have a few seconds.
Okay.
What do you think the future holds in the next 5 to 10 years?
I think this work will lead to more people going into remission and staying in remission, because we're going to figure out how to make that happen. That's why we come to work every day.
That's your motivation?
Every day.
Dr. Steven Foreman, thanks so much for joining us.
We'll
be back.
All right,
it's an honor for us to have you. We'll be back with more Fox 11 News in Depth right after this break. Thanks for joining us for this week's Fox 11 News in Depth. I'm Hal Eisner. We'll see you next time. And with regard to that video, Ending Disease, it's available on video on demand services like iTunes and Google Play. We'll see you next time, everybody. Bye-bye.